I was more afraid of motherhood than I was of labor. If you've ever felt like you're the only one struggling with any fears of motherhood or as a couple fears of becoming parents, you're not alone. I hope you'll subscribe so we can go through this journey together. My name is Fernanda and I am a first-time mom. If this is the first time you are tuning in, welcome. I'm sorry my hair looks a little crazy right now. We are going to be straightening it and styling it while we have a little chit chat of something that's not really talked about enough, and that's the fear of having kids before even having kids, and those maybe conversations that you haven't had with your partner and you're thinking about and they keep you up at night because you're wondering if it's something you really want. I know sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, we as moms on social media sometimes tend to romanticize only motherhood, but we don't talk about that not everyone is receiving motherhood with joy, and it can come with lots of anxiety. For any background on my story of wanting kids and not wanting kids, go ahead and watch my last video. Today I'm going to more so dive deep into those fears that I had. In my last video, I go more into depth of how I went from wanting kids to not wanting kids to being pregnant and now have a 4-month-old. So I'm going to be sharing all my fears with you guys and kind of how I've navigated them, or how I'm currently navigating them at the moment. I would say that my number one fear, if you guys see me looking over here, it's because I'm looking at the mirror. My number one fear before having kids, I would say I had two top number ones. One of them was having a baby in the evil world that we live in right now. I worked at a law enforcement agency a few months ago, right up to giving labor, and I dealt with and saw lots of really sad cases, and that was one of the reasons I went from wanting kids to no longer wanting kids. I just thought it was almost cruel to bring babies into the world anymore. And even though me and my husband are good people and we have a good village behind us, I was still scared because I knew there was and is lots of things that you can't control as a parent, and that's just the reality of it. That we're gonna do the very best with our kids, but there's lots of things that we can't control. How I kind of handle that now is, after I tell you guys every fear, I'm going to tell you how I'm handling it right now. So how I'm handling currently that fear, now that I have a 4-month-old, is, well, let me tell you, the fear is very real, and there is validity in that fear because we do live in an evil world. And I think in order to be a good parent, you have to realize that we live in an evil world, because that's gonna help you make the best informed decisions for your child and what you do or don't allow in their lives. But I do realize it's really hard, at least for me, and you might share this feeling, finding a balance of how much is too much worrying and am I just being too dramatic about some things or overprotective. And I think that varies from mother to mother, but for me, I try to focus on what I can control. So I obviously can't control anything that has to do with future decisions my child is going to make. My husband and I will make decisions together on who does and does not come around our children, as well as any future decisions, like our child will most likely not be allowed to have sleepovers or sleep over at any of his friends' houses. And that is pretty self-explanatory why. But that's just an example. that whenever I find myself getting anxious about that and how evil the world is, one, sometimes I have to turn off social media for a little bit and catch my breath and say a prayer and talk to God about how I'm feeling. And he always reminds me he's in control. And before Isaac, that's my baby's name, before Isaac was mine, he belongs to God. So I know and trust that God's not going to allow anything to happen in his life that he doesn't permit. And we have to remember that sometimes anxiety comes from the sense of wanting to control everything. So we get anxious. Why? Because since we know the world is evil, we know that we can't control that. So that freaks us out because we just want to put our babies in a glass box and have nothing happen to them. So just focusing on what you can control now and putting your babies in the hands of God and submitting yourselves to prayer also, because that's going to help you be more confident in what you're doing and what you're teaching your baby so that they can make better decisions as they grow up. I don't know if I moved the frame. I had to change out the battery because the last one was dead. But I was saying, submitting yourself in prayer as a mom is crucial. I have never prayed so much since becoming a mom. You don't even have to be a super religious person. I used to attend church regularly. I think a lot of people always assume I still do, but we have not attended church regularly in a really long time. But just because I don't doesn't mean I've ever stopped praying. Especially, like I said, ever since I became a mom, I've just constantly been in prayer because I understand that God entrusted this beautiful child to me, and only with his help will I be able to do this the way he expects me to. So that's how I address that fear. I said at the beginning of this, I told you there was 2 fears that I would categorize as top, like number 1. The second one was that, and this one might sound very selfish, but I'm being honest here, so please don't judge me. I was super afraid that a baby, I'm scared to tell you guys, I don't want you to judge me. But I'm gonna say this in hopes that this will help someone. I was scared that a baby would ruin our marriage. We were married for 7 years before having a baby. And our marriage is by no means perfect, but Ricardo and I are best friends. And we did so many fun things before Isaac. And I loved how we could just pick up and go. I mean, kind of, because we have our dog Coco, so picking up and going always involved having somebody come check in on her. But I knew that the moment we had a child, that would change. I knew that coming home and just deciding to go to dinner or laying in bed together and just talking or watching a movie was not gonna be the same. And in my head, I thought we would never, ever have time for each other. And that Ricardo would be overwhelmed. I knew Ricardo was going to be a good father, but sometimes I was afraid because, let's be honest, a lot of men want to be dads, but not all of them want to be fathers, present fathers. I unfortunately don't have a very good background when it comes to fathers, so I was afraid that Ricardo just wanted to be a dad, but he didn't fully realize what it meant. So I was afraid to have a baby and ruin that. I'm like, we're doing great on our own. Why? If something's not broke, don't fix it. Now that we have our child, I've never loved my husband more. And I promise you, I am not lying when I tell you this. It's been a lot easier for me to be patient with him. Now, I'm speaking for myself because I've heard a lot of women say they deal with like postpartum rage and they just cannot stand their husbands, or even through pregnancy. Like, a lot of people were like, can you, like, when I was having morning sickness, a lot of women said that just the smell of their husbands, like their husbands didn't smell bad, they were showered and everything, but just their normal regular smell made them sick. They couldn't stand them. But I just wanted to be with Ricardo. That's all I wanted. And even postpartum, I just wanted Ricardo, and he was amazing at helping me through postpartum, and right now he is an amazing dad. I've never, when I had a relationship with my dad, he was a good dad. He was a great dad. But Ricardo just shows up in his own way, in a way I've never witnessed a father stand up. So, you have a baby. If you're afraid of this too, you have a baby that you're going to love with all your heart and soul, and a love that you've never experienced in your life. So when the person that you chose to do life with loves them and cares for them in the same way as you, it makes you love them even more. This is why they say it's important to know who you're having kids with. But I've also realized and seen stories where sometimes you have babies with someone and you think you know that person, and sadly they turn out to be total pieces of crap, and a lot of you guys did not deserve that. And this is a message for all my single moms out there. You guys did not deserve what you're going through and how your partner treated you when you had those babies. I have a lot of single mom friends, and I have a lot of single moms in my family, and let me just tell you guys, I now admire you guys. I already admired you guys, but now even more so. Because sometimes I'm going crazy, and that's that I have Ricardo's help. And some of you guys, even being single mothers, worked, got an education, took care of your babies, looked great, went to the gym. How? I don't know. You guys are superwoman. Do I need to make a whole other video praising you guys? Because you guys freaking deserve that. Back to what I was saying. Like I said, my biggest fear was it ruining our marriage. Has it caused tensions? Yes, sometimes, because you know why? It's completely normal. I look really silly right now, and here's my balding proof. Anyways, of course there's going to be tension. You both are sleep deprived. At the beginning, you're waking up every 1 to 2 hours, if that. Of course, there are going to be moments where things are tense. You are both learning to do something new, but it has not ruined my marriage. On the contrary, it's made us stronger, and it's given us more of a reason to fight for our marriage when we do have problems. I will say Ricardo and I need to start getting better now that Isaac is getting older about making time for more dates. In these 2 months, we've only had 2 dates, which to some people probably sounds like a lot, and to some people might not be enough. I personally don't think it's enough, because there are moments where I get sad and I tell Ricardo, I'm like, I miss you. I see him every day. We sleep in the same bed, but sometimes I still find myself missing him, and that's because I'm gonna stop talking about that or else I'm gonna cry. You guys, I almost cry in every video because I was already an emotional person before all my hormones trying to level each other now. level each other out. And now I just want to cry all the time, especially when it has to do with my husband, because as much as he annoys the crap out of me sometimes, I freaking love him. And he's one of my favorite people in this world. I do think we need to get better at making time to at least once a month have a date, like a solo date. And thankfully we have my mom, who is more than willing to watch her grandson, and she has offered for us to leave him and go somewhere, and I just don't want to leave my child, so that is my fault and I need to get better at that. So that was my other fear and how we're kind of navigating that now. So those were my top 2 fears. Evil world we live in, and a baby ruining my marriage. Another fear of mine was, go watch my other video, shameless plug. You will see that right before getting pregnant, I had just lost 40 pounds. It is possible to have a healthy pregnancy and healthy baby at any size, but I'm sorry, I have to acknowledge, and this is not me being fat phobic, because obviously I'm not skinny, but it's just the reality. Oh, jeez, I should probably do something, whatever. I still feel like this is not very professional, but my life is not just very professional. Anyways, the reality is that being overweight puts you more at risk of a higher risk pregnancy and other things. I also wanted to be healthy, to be running after a child and in shape, and that obviously didn't happen. Thank God. That's another, so my health was a reason I was afraid to get pregnant, because I was afraid, because of my PCOS, I didn't want to get pregnant before getting it in check, because I was afraid it would increase my chances of a miscarriage. Blaming my weight. I didn't want to add blaming my weight, because of something traumatic happening during my pregnancy or labor. I was extremely nervous my whole pregnancy and labor. I was extremely scared of the gestational diabetes test. Like, I dreaded that test my entire pregnancy up until the day I took it, because I was like, I'm probably gonna have gestational diabetes because I'm fat. And every time doctors see me, not my midwife, doctors, they're like, oh no, you're fat, you have a high-risk pregnancy, you're probably gonna need a C-section, you're probably gonna have gestational diabetes. So I was traumatized. So I took my gestational diabetes test, and guess what? I passed. Thank Jesus. And like I did get preeclampsia the morning of labor. I had really high blood pressure. I've never had high blood pressure in my life. And thank God, after giving labor, my blood pressure has been good and regulated. And it could have been way worse, and I think the only one I owe that to is God. So my health and my weight were another reason I did not want to get pregnant at the time that I did. P.S. Don't judge my crooked hairlines. Like the other day I went to go take my passport pictures, and my hairline was so crooked in my freaking pictures. And now it's going to be on my passport for the next few years. Oh well. Next fear was finances and daycare. My husband and I were very financially stable before I got pregnant. I started asking around, just out of curiosity, how much is daycare? At the time, if you would have told me $800, I would have been like, dang, that's a lot. No. Daycare was more than my mortgage. We were looking, the very cheapest, which was actually our best option because it was with somebody that family friend from church, was $1,300. That's not cheaper than our mortgage. But it was in another, so I live in Pasco, it was in Kennewick. I live and worked in Pasco, and it was in Kennewick, so it was going to be a drive every single morning and afternoon. So our next option was a daycare closer to me, but that was $1,600. And that was going to be a lot of my paycheck. I knew I was only going to be working to pay our car, pay daycare, and maintain my shopping habits. We also really like going to concerts and going out of town, so I knew that once a baby came, that was not going to be a possibility. And yes, a lot of these fears were mine were just selfish fears, but it's the reality, so we're going to talk about them. How did we address and how are we addressing that fear of mine? Finances and daycare. Daycare, well, I quit my job. I'm a stay-at-home mom now, so that is no longer a worry. We sat down, looked at our expenses to income, and made sure that we could live off of Ricardo's income. Are my spending habits going to be the same? Unfortunately not, but guess what? It is worth every financial sacrifice. It is worth every financial sacrifice we're having to make when I get to hold my son every morning, when I think that I'm not going to have to ask anyone to have his birthday off. I'm not going to have to ask to have Christmas off or Christmas Eve. That makes everything worth it. There's not really much else explanation on that besides that, for me personally, once this baby was born, every financial sacrifice was worth it. And the very last fear that I'm still trying to figure out, and I don't know if I'm gonna succeed, to be honest with you, is losing myself. I was and am so afraid of losing myself in being a mom, especially a stay-at-home mom. Before having kids, I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning every single morning to go to the gym. The Saturdays I would go to the gym for 1 hour and, like a psychopath, go on the Stairmaster for 1 hour. I would go to the car wash after work. I would go to the car wash afterwards, go grab breakfast. Everything was so slow, not planned, not coordinated. And now everything has to be planned and coordinated, and my life revolves around keeping my child alive, feeding my child, feeding my husband, and cleaning my home. And I have been struggling at prioritizing myself. So we are developing self-care daily, weekly, monthly checklist, and I'm going to be sharing that with you guys once that is done. But so that one is still being navigated through. But one huge thing that has helped me is realizing that I am not going to be or ever find the same person that I was before having a baby. Why? Because having a child changes you physically, it changes you mentally. So I wish I would have known this before pregnancy, because I probably would have offered myself way more grace before having my baby. So now I'm just focusing on finding the new me, finding my new priorities, and making time for myself, and loving myself a little extra, because I gave birth to a whole human. And what I'm doing is not easy, and some days I forget that, and I'm really, really, really hard on myself. So is it possible to lose yourself? Absolutely. I'm 50-50 right now, but it is not impossible to find the best version of you postpartum that there is and love her. And I pray that God helps me find that and helps me embrace of who He's called me to be now, and helps me find who I am outside of being a mother. Because yes, God can call us to be mothers, but that's not the only thing that He calls us to. He has way more in store for us. So if you're watching this video and you don't have kids, but you might have some of the same fears as me, I invite you to pray and ask God to show you the way. He didn't really change my mind. He's just like, well, too bad you're getting pregnant and you're having having a baby, and I've embraced that. But I pray that God makes that clear to you, and that if He surprises you just like He surprised me, that you may welcome it with open arms and embrace this new chapter. If you currently have kids and you are still dealing with some of these fears, I pray we can figure these out together. You are not alone. I know, like I said at the beginning of the video, we romanticize motherhood a lot, but 75 to 90% of the time, it's not as pretty as we make it seem on social media. You're not alone. A lot of us don't have all this makeup on during the week. That's why I'm filming this video, because it's a rare occurrence. Continue being the amazing mother that I know you are, but at the same time, let's start making little changes to prioritize ourselves to be the best version we can be for our children. With that being said, thank you so much for listening to another spiel by crazy and unprofessional me. Please don't forget to subscribe if you don't have a YouTube account. I'm going to say this again, for all my 30 to 40-year-olds with no YouTube accounts, I don't see the point in it. There's a point, okay? The point is, so you're notified when your favorite people post. Okay, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.